The Bristol Board of Education. Maintaining a safe and secure learning environment for all students.
Okay, now we're going to start. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Board of Education meeting for May 2nd. I just want to give you one little logistical note. We're going to stand up for the national anthem, but I want you to stay standing afterwards because we do the pledge afterwards if you haven't been here before. So we're really pleased to have with us this evening instrumentalists from Bristol Eastern, led by Amy Bowman, and you have a special treat because the arrangement is by one of our own students, Luke Ashworth.
Oh, Luke.
Thank you very much, and it shows again, once again, that the music is alive and well in the Bristol schools. Thank you very much. Now we'll do the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. At this time, I would like us all to take a moment of silence for some of our former employees who passed on. Tina Della Bernarda was a teacher at Northeast, Hubble, Green Hills, Edgewood, Southside, O'Connell, and Jennings from 9/2 of '69 to 6/30 of '09. And Mary Louise Deneen was a teacher at Callan and Mountain View from September 5th of '67 to June 30th of '02. Thank you. Before we get to our staff awards, I was recently asked to give an award to another local board of education, and they had a little nice feature, at least I thought it was a nice feature, so I'm going to share it with you this evening. And one of the things they did was they read their mission statement and their goals and their core values. And so I thought I'd read ours just so it helps us keep us focused on why it is we're up here and why you are here in the room. And so our mission is to teach and learn with passion and purpose. And our board goals are to hire a highly qualified and diverse staff, narrow the achievement gap, provide a safe learning climate, and Board of Education commissioners are committed to receiving at least 25% 20 hours of professional development over the course of their 4-year term. And our core values are excellence, innovation, trust, inclusiveness, and accountability. And at this point, I will turn the mic over to our superintendent, who will provide you with our staff and student recognition.
Thank you. It is my pleasure every year to announce our staff members who have gone very far and beyond the expectations of their role in the classroom or in the office or in the hallways, and we honor them with a special staff award. When I call your name, I'd like you to stand and remain standing with the other honorees. First, Bridget Gola, special education teacher in the Access program.
Elevator alarm.
Michael Higgins, assistant principal at Bristol Eastern High School. And Peter, I may have to apologize after I'm done with your name. Peter Kazakiewicz, art teacher at Chippens Hill Middle School, now at Bristol Central High School. Kathy Krowick, behavior intervention specialist at Chippens Hill Middle School. I wish you two were in seats because then people would realize you were being honored. Derek LaChance, grade 3 at West Bristol, although Derek has been at 4 different schools in the time that he has taught in Bristol. Congratulations. And on a personal note, I've known Derek since he was a little kid at Bingham School when I was the principal. And finally, Kelly Lynn Thibodeau, French teacher at Bristol Eastern High School and teacher leader. We will be honoring these staff members at a dinner on May 30th. It's a very special night, and we look forward to honoring you all. Thank you. I'm sorry, I don't have the certificates with me for the CAVE Awards, but I am going to honor these students. I have so many friends in the audience. It's so nice. Okay, we're going to hunt. These are very special awards, and it is my pleasure to honor students for in our schools. The Connecticut Association of Boards of Education offers these awards every year, and we're pleased first to give Olivia Rajat an award, and you'll stay here with me, Olivia. Jacob Nelson, also from Bristol Central High School. Sarah Snedeker from Northeast Middle School. Kiana Ouellette, Northeast Middle School. From Green Hills School, Mason Coco. And Gabriella Pontiac from Green Hills School as well. Now I know you're very flexible, so I'm going to ask you to share with our board, and you can turn and face them, and tell us one thing you did as a leader in your school. Easy question, right? Olivia speaks to the board every month, so I think we'll start with you because You'll need to wait for everyone else to know how easy it is.
Okay, I'm the president of my National Honor Society and the vice president of my class.
I'm the president of the Interact Club and the captain of the golf team.
I help out a lot in school and with the teachers, and they have me do a lot of the jobs for them.
We put you on the spot here.
Absolutely. It's okay.
It's okay.
I did community service for the National Honor Society at my school.
I help volunteer for the art club and with Alzheimer's.
Certificates, Olivia, you're welcome, Jacob. Sarah. Thank you. Lisa. Thank you so much.
Thank you, students. You represent the best of the best, and we are so proud of you at Bristol Public Schools. We're now going to move to the business side of our agenda. You are all certainly welcome to stay, but if you're not that interested in our business, we won't be insulted. But the first item of business is the approval of our April 4th, 2018 regular meeting minutes. I would entertain a motion to approve. So moved.
Chris, I think we missed something. I'm
What did
sorry.
we miss?
Our principal from Bristol Central is giving you the high sign.
Okay, what did we
I think
miss?
there's a scholar athlete or.
That's in my report.
Okay. You guys might want to sit. You gotta stay long. They were in
Okay.
I didn't see the email, so I wasn't here, so I cannot.
Okay, so Mr. O'Brien has approved the minutes. Do we have a second? We have a second. Joe is seconding. Any changes or corrections to the minutes? If not, all in favor, say aye. Aye.
Abstain.
Opposed? And abstained. I abstain as well. Okay, we have 2 abstentions. So that motion is approved. We'll now move right over to committee reports. First committee up will be Finance.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good evening, everyone. The Finance Committee met last night, and in a few minutes, I am going to ask Dr. Dieter and Mrs. Brown to give some details, though not very much has changed since last month. I do want to just spend a minute talking about over the past few months, I have gone to the Board of Finance meetings where they have been discussing the city's 2018-2019 budget, and that includes, of course, our general operating budget as well as our food services budget. This evening, the Board of Finance met, and they voted on the budget. Our food services budget was voted in at a little under $3 million, which is what we had asked for, and our general operating budget. What did I do with it? Oh, here it is. At $111,530,624. We will likely, if that's what it stays at, we are going to have to be making some cuts, but hopefully nothing drastic. They will be meeting again, the Board of Finance, along with the City Council, which is called the Joint Board, to vote on the budget, hopefully on May 21st. That's when it's scheduled right now. So anybody who can attend in support of the budget, Council Chambers, May 21st. Thank you.
As Commissioner Rivera had said, we do have very little change between our budget status report from last month to this month. We are currently showing an operating budget at this point in time at negative $1,328,685. I do expect that will change, but the dynamics are such that our expected revenue from our May installment of excess costs, a little over $1,087,000, along with our other revenues, rentals, tuitions, and Medicaid, will offset the remainder of budget year spending. So I expect that we're going to end the year right about where we are now, between $1.2 and $1.3 million deficit. We will be monitoring that very closely over the next 2 weeks, and we will have to make a formal request to the city at our next City Board of Finance meeting on May 22nd to do so. So as we monitor that, we'll have an updated number for you. I would refer to the superintendent if we're going to have a special meeting with the Board of Finance before we do that. We had talked about that a little bit last night. So you will receive news from that. Just looking at our cover sheet, I just didn't want anything to appear differently. On the cover sheet under benefits and athletics, we have some large numbers there that appear as available. I've updated you each month to that. In the benefits and fixed, it appears that we have $850,000 available, but that also includes what we pay in Medicare, Social Security, and those parts of our salaries. And then in athletics and student activities, we have not encumbered our stipends for spring coaches and our stipends for student activities. So those numbers will not be what they appear to be here. So there's the offset in spending. I also did want to share with you that we had talked about position control training with Tyler Technologies. We do have a date for that that's just come in, and we will be training on that May 22nd and 23rd. We'll be working with our HR department, and we are very excited for that. So that's a big deal to us. Regarding our transfers, very little activity for the month of April. We did bring one thing to your attention last evening, and that was we had a large budget transfer request that, according to the new policy, doesn't require a vote, but we did want to bring that to your attention, and that is transferring $15,975 from district-wide speech pathology to special education professional services, and also a $10,000 amount being transferred from Northeast Middle School speech pathology to district-wide special education professional services. Nothing else there for transfers. We did have an update to the cafeteria budget that I wanted to review. Bear with me while I find my cafeteria update sheet. Yes.
Just because I found it. I have friends too.
Thank you. We did email back and forth and talk with the assistant controller over on the city side, who helped me update our end of year inventory numbers. And so we reviewed an updated sheet and we brought those numbers. We disaggregated them out into the end of year inventory and then as a carryover revenue. So our expected deficit has decreased quite a bit as a result. Our end of year inventory at the end of the 16-17 school year, which was not in your report last month, is $48,501. Along with the income less expenses and our carryover revenue, what that means is we begin this year with a $50,501 carryover revenue. So when that's carried over into our current year, and then we monitor our incomes less expenses, we are projecting right now a cafeteria deficit of $18,887, which is a very different number than last month. We were at just over $61,000. It's a little hard to follow. If you have any questions, I'm happy to take them. If not, Dr. Jeter?
It's just one comment. The reason that we have a projected deficit is because of excess cost share. And many people in the room know what that is. And it's a refund from the state, or it's money from the state based on higher than expected or high needs special services. Apparently, many more districts are now taking advantage of the finite amount of money that the state has. So we are not receiving as much as we had expected to receive. Otherwise, we would likely not be in a deficit situation.
Thank you. Good evening, Commissioners. Last night at the Finance Subcommittee, we discussed in detail some of the trends that we've been experiencing in the Special Services Department. Tonight I'll report out on a couple of those items. Foremost, our displaced students here in Bristol. These are students that arrived in Bristol as a result of the natural disasters this fall. That number continues to hold steady at 40 total students enrolled, while the number holds steady. It's important to point out that we've had students moving in and move out, but the total has been 40 over a period of time. We did receive notification today via email that the state is moving forward with a process for applying for reimbursement of funds expended. So more to come on that, likely at the next subcommittee meeting that we have. Our marginal cost report, which we've been following up with over the past several months, and this represents new enrollment to special education. These could be students that have either moved into district or students that have recently been identified as eligible for special education services. So the net increase in our student count in that marginal cost category is 16 total, and those students represent a cost of services that we did not anticipate of approximately $95,000. And then lastly, I've been reporting out on our enrollment trends, regular ed versus special ed. This past month we experienced 20% of our new enrollment are students that are eligible for services, which is approximately 5% higher than the state average. Be happy to entertain any questions or clarifications. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Peter. That's it.
That's it? Okay, we'll move right on to communications and community relations. Director Caggiano.
All righty. So we had our meeting on, I lost the date, April 25th, which wasn't all that long ago. At our meeting, we review and discuss the draft spring newsletter, which will be coming out pretty soon. So we'll make sure that everybody looks out for that. Sarah's doing a great job on that, and we appreciate all the work that she's doing. We also looked at ways that we can improve delivering messages and news to the community. Dr. Carbone has joined us and has an awful lot of experience in Twitter and Facebook and some other areas, and we had a good open discussion. We'll also work with the BDA and other organizations to make sure that the good news about the City of Bristol schools gets out there. And I'll steal a little bit from the student achievement report as well, that Linda Rich came in and shared with us a plan that she has for the FRCs. It actually is near and dear to my heart, as my mother's fund is helping to fund the FRC. So she shared that with us, and that's a communication plan that we'd like to get out as well. And that's it for CCR.
We'll move on to student achievement. I think someone's going to pinch hit for Commissioner Dubey, who had to step out.
That's going to be me as well. Pull it up, which is why I actually stole from mine. So at student achievement, which was on April 23rd, I think. But anyway, the district accountability plan was presented by Carly Fortin, and I think there'll be more coming, so you'll hear at some of the regular board meetings and throughout the year more about the district accountability plan. We'll be hearing from every school as well as we move into the summer months. Again, Linda Rich was there, but I don't need to go over that again because it was a very similar presentation. The first readings, which we'll also hear tonight at this meeting, on adding 3 different AP courses were also discussed at that meeting. And I think that was it, unless I missed anything others that were there.
Okay.
Nope.
No questions. We will move right on to policy. Commissioner Taylor.
Policy met on Monday, April 9th. We always meet the second Monday of the month, and we went over about 13 policies, so it was a longer, pretty intense meeting. I just want to remind you, I know that Chairman Wilson reminds you often that when we vote on these and we affirm these, that we have gone over them a lot during the meeting. It's not something that we quickly are just looking at and that we are affirming. We had lots of discussions beforehand. So later in the discussion and voting portion, we will be affirming and also discussing other policies. Thank you.
Okay, and Commissioner O'Brien, personnel?
Personnel met to discuss the staff awards, which were announced this evening, and that was a highlight of our meeting.
Okay, and Commissioner Hintz, Operations.
The Operations Committee met on the 20th. It was an entirely positive meeting, lots of good news. We found out that we are eligible for a grant to remove some aging oil tanks. I know that's getting the crowd excited. But this is something we're legally obligated to do, and now we don't have to fund it entirely out of our budget, and or the city out of the capital improvement plan. Taylor Domingue from Bristol Eastern High School in Ms. Delernia's AP Environmental class came to us with a presentation on constructing a rain garden sponsored by the Pequabic River Waterside Association. This is a terrific project. It'll be constructed on the King Street side. So they'll plant a garden with earthen berms that will take runoff so it doesn't go into our water system, into the Pequabic River and other waterways. And finally, we learned that the eligibility marker for the community eligibility provision has changed to include children who are on Medicaid. So we are looking at adding 2 new schools, and we'll discuss that further later on in the meeting.
Thank you. My report. A few weeks ago, I did have the privilege to go to San Antonio for the National School Board Association meeting. It's a great meeting. There's probably 7,000 participants there with board members and educators and vendors, and probably about 1,200 vendors that are there. So it's really like the CAVE conference, but on super steroids. It's always very inspiring, great networking event. And I always enjoy going, but I always like to remind folks that Bristol's not paying for me to go. I go with assistance from other sources, so Bristol is not paying, so I wanted to be clear about that. Probably the highlight of my time, probably not the highlight of most people's times, but I was able to participate in what's called the Delegate Assembly. It's 150 delegates all across the country that got together. Most of the policies were not controversial, but obviously we spent a significant amount of time talking about school safety and arming of teachers or not. There was a very big geographic difference on that issue, and we were not able to really reach any kind of consensus on that. So we did pass a policy, but it was not maybe what some of us might think. But before we started this process, we knew how controversial it was going to be. So we passed a civility policy, and it was really quite amazing. They broke us up into 4 groups, and we got to be in a relatively small setting and discuss these issues. And you really did get to hear people's different viewpoints on these very controversial issues. And I think we all got some learning on both sides, but there wasn't enough consensus to come out with a policy. It was kind of a no policy. It was really what they ended up doing. So that kind of concludes mine. And I have sent to the board some of the handouts that I've received, and instead of trying to give you a presentation at a meeting like this, I've decided that maybe I'll send you something once a month or once every other month or maybe twice a month if I get really motivated of some of the handouts that I might think you might find interesting. Did want to speak just a little bit about graduation. I and Dr. Carl Bowen will be going to Bristol Central on June 20th, and the Commissioner Vivard and Dr. Moreau will be going to Bristol Eastern. Any board members are certainly welcome to be up on the dais with us. We would just ask that you contact Dr. Moreau or Susan Everett to let them know so that the schools would know, and they'll have a nameplate for you and a seat and a chair. There's not a lot of room on the dais, so we want to make sure that there is enough room for you if you'd like to be there. So everybody is welcome. In terms of CREC, I continue to be part of a working group, and I think I've told you, some of you in the past, or in this group, that CREC has not had its foundation grant change since 2010. So they've been living with the same funding formula since 2010. And the struggle that creates is, in order for them to administer all their programs, they end up having to charge participating school districts. And in the past, many years, they've been able to get through with just little incremental changes, but CREC has notified all the school districts in the 35-town district that if funding does not change at the state level, we're going to have to make hard decisions. And one of those, we did give a sort of idea of what those costs would be. Probably wouldn't impact a district like Bristol to the degree that it'll impact Bloomfield, East Hartford, and Hartford. It would be significant dollars to those three communities if we have to increase the fees to administer the programs are correct. But I will tell you that everything and anything is on the agenda. We have looked at multiple proposals about how we administer these programs. Our executive director always says that he's agnostic in terms of whether it's correct that administers these magnet schools or some other entity administers these magnet schools. But we just want to make sure that we take care of the 8,500 students that are in the correct system moving forward. So our executive director and his team are having conversations with legislators, and lots of school districts are in this working group that I am in. Dr. Moreau attended one of the sessions with us, so she got a flavor of some of the dilemmas that CREC will be facing, much like any other school district. The only problem is they don't have a funding source like a municipality, so if the state chooses to either cut their funding or leave it flat for 7 or 8 years, they don't have any other alternatives where we have the municipality. So, and then finally, I will just chat briefly about CABE. There is going to be a legislative wrap-up session on May 15th at 8 o'clock at the Capitol. If you're interested, you'll hear all the legislation that passed or didn't pass coming out of the Education Committee or that impacts education. And then my second agenda item that I'd like to talk about is we received an opportunity to apply for a grant. Dr. Monroe and I submitted the application. It's an equity toolkit and a diversity emphasis. And it's the CABE was funded by the Graustein and the Nellie Mae Foundation to implement this grant. So we were one of the 3 pilot communities along with Waterbury, Danbury, and Ansonia and Bristol. I suspect maybe because I'm on the board, they probably selected Bristol. I don't know that for a fact. I was not part of the selection process. But the idea behind this grant is that they will bring 2 facilitators in. One is Ann Broderick she's a past NSBA member and a former Superintendent, Dr. Ramos, and they will talk about diversity. The idea is they're going to meet with our board first, and then they want to meet with a group from the community, up to about 50 people, to discuss how we can have the conversation about diversity in particular. This really started as CABE did a study about 3 years ago, and we looked at boards of education and how diverse they were or weren't, and found out that probably, I hate to use the statistic, but probably 94% of the boards were not diverse, and yet our communities that we represent are diverse. So how do we change that dynamic? And so that was really where the grant started, but it really has kind of morphed into more as well. How do we attract and retain and nurture diverse staff? So that's what the community conversation will be about. We won't be doing it per se, but they'll be giving us the tools to have those conversations. It's really just a set of 2 meetings, once an introductional meeting in probably June or July, and then a meeting in the fall. And then, we will continue on. It is one of our board goals. So, the superintendent and I certainly thought it was perfect alignment. So I just want to make you aware of that. The grantor will be having a meeting with us as a board, and I think we'll do it at a workshop instead of, if they wanted to come to a board meeting, I thought that would probably be difficult for us. It's going to take about 30 to 45 minutes, and I know how your capacity is for those kind of things, so I thought it would be best if we have a special meeting, so we'll probably have a special workshop once we can schedule with the facilitators. And that concludes my report.
Which will also count as professional learning.
Yes.
That's right.
We now go to the student representative, and who's up first?
Good evening, Dr. Monroe and Board of Education Commissioners. This
past month has been very busy and we're looking forward to many activities as the year ends. Last month, Student Council held a blood drive in honor of one of our English teachers, Mr. Bonetta. Mr. Bonetta expressed his interest in helping others, and in his name, Student Council collected around 40 pints of blood. Friends of Rachel is hosting a free car wash on Saturday, May 12th in the Bristol Eastern parking lot. While the car wash is free, the club will be accepting donations to add to their relay. This relay has already raised over $2,700 and continues to raise money to help fight cancer. The club is also raffling 2 laptops and an iPad to students that help raise money.
Last Thursday, BE Clean Club sponsored an assembly for 9th and 12th graders. In this assembly, Chris Sandy shared his powerful story about the significance of seemingly insignificant moments. This was part of the Choices Matter group. On May 31st, Bristol Eastern will host Chris Herron to talk about his side in dealing with drug use. This assembly has been the talk of the year. Also last Thursday, Miss Pluso, another English teacher, held auditions for our 2018 graduation speaker. The class of 2018 is very excited to graduate and is looking forward to all of the speeches. In addition to coordinating graduation plans, last month, Miss Pluso took 4 students to the annual True Colors field trip at UConn and led a workshop for teachers and advisors on the benefits of running the GSA club. Last week, junior prom tickets went on sale for just $60. The junior class is very excited for prom this year at the Doubletree. Last Wednesday, the Bristol Eastern Theater Arts group went on their annual field trip to New York City to watch a Broadway show. Students had tons of fun and there was even a promposal on the red stairs in Times Square. Tomorrow, Friday, and Saturday, Beta will present the musical All Shook Up. The musical will be shown at 7 tomorrow and Friday, and the 2 shows on Saturday start at 2 and 7. One last thing that I would like to share with you is a survey that I gave my school about their year in general. I asked questions about motivation, after-school activities, and their feelings on how everything went. So this month I sent out a quick survey to all the students at Bristol Eastern. I had a total of 175 students reply. Unfortunately, 2 of them were not taking the survey as seriously as I would hope. So that's why it only shows 173. So this is, can't see it. Okay, this is a copy of the survey that the students saw when they were taking it. It consisted of 8 required questions and 1 question that branched off of another. So when asked what grade they were, a majority of the students were seniors, so that may have been my part pushing my friends. But freshmen, sophomores, and juniors all made up about 20% each. So this one kind of surprised me a little bit, but 3/4 of the replies were female. In the future, I would hope that more males would take the survey to make the ratio more reflective of our student body. So for this 3rd question, they were asked on a scale of 1 to 10, how has your school year been? And so over 60% of the students that took the survey rated their school year a 7 or better. Of the other 40%, 26 more rated it a 5 or 6, which is an overall awesome year. So the next question had 5 choices. They were able to pick up to 5. The question that I asked was what was the best part of this year, and so the first answer was homecoming, 2nd was teachers, the 3rd was friends and students, and the 4th was clubs, and so there was also an option to write something in. So obviously 135 students picked friends and students, so we know that they're a big influence in our school. And teachers were picked 38 times, as well as clubs being picked 39 times. So some of the things that students chose to write in are sports, pep rally, going to football games, and Spirit Week, Bristol Technical Ed, theater, after school volunteering, and prom, which didn't happen yet, but I know they're all excited for. Over 90% of our students felt encouraged at some point this year. This number is amazing to see how well, as a school, we have been making each other feel like we can accomplish our dreams. %80 of our students were able to talk to someone and put their trust in them. While this number is incredible, in the future we plan to help new students feel more at home by allowing them to follow someone around for a couple of days, hoping to make new friends and feel more comfortable at school, also show them their classes, and find a place to sit for lunch. So 76.3% of our students were able to find an activity that interests them this year and participate. Of the 23.7, those students were asked to answer the next question, which is why they weren't able to, or why they thought they weren't able to. So about half of our students that said no, they didn't want to join anything this year. So if they wanted to join anything, I feel like the last slide would have been greater, but they either just were too busy or didn't find a club they liked. A club in particular that came up in the survey was the outdoor club. This club unfortunately does not exist anymore because the advisor does not work at Bristol Eastern anymore. So the next slide is just a couple more reasons as to why they answered no. So some of these, I don't know if they just didn't realize it wasn't required, but some of them said yes. And then one person also said that they had no time because they need to keep up with school, with all of their schoolwork. So schoolwork and work outside of school can also be a contributing factor. So for my last question, I asked if there was anything they would like to add to completely summarize their year. So I got a lot of positive responses. You can tell some of the freshmen, I enjoyed my first year, but one of the comments that I really liked seeing was stressful, but looking back on it, it helped me grow and accomplish things I didn't realize I could. Honestly, I think I could speak for the school and say that that pertains to almost everybody. It's very stressful, but you have a good time and you learn a lot of things. And then the last comment on this slide was just recognizing everything that we do at this school, and I think we're a really good school about that. So many activities like the Lancer Games, which was a new, almost like a pep rally for us. We started that this year, and so there was a lot of good comments about that. So we want to thank Mrs. Calvi Rogers for bringing that to Bristol Eastern. The basketball shooting was pretty awesome. And so they had memories and they were able to laugh alongside friends. So something that I can relate to personally, one of the comments said, it's been good. I just wish that I did not have as many long-term substitute teachers as I had. So this year we did have a lot of teachers that were either out sick, they were pregnant, or they just retired for personal reasons. So I did have a lot of substitute teachers this year too. So, I mean, you can't really do anything about that, but we just want people to know. And then we love enthusiastic teachers, because if a teacher is willing and happy to teach us, then we are going to be happy to learn. So then you can see the seniors also commented, can't wait to graduate. So that is the end of my survey, but I have one more slide. Today, actually, the Friends of Rachel group started a hope wall. So on this wall, we took duct tape and traced out the words hope. And so with sticky notes, we have a table in front. There's sticky notes and pens. Students are able to go up to the table, take a sticky note, take some tape, and take a pen and put a person who's been affected by cancer. And so we want to come together as a school and know that everyone is affected by cancer and everyone is really supporting everyone in this group. So that's just what we're starting. And so we hope to fill up those letters. Any questions?
Thank you so much. Did you get where you're going to school next year?
UConn.
UConn? Okay.
and Rowan commissioners. Last Sunday, we said arrivederci to our Italian exchange students, and now it's almost time to say arrivederci to our class of 2018. This past week, 36 Italian exchange students from Fano, Italy visited with their host families to reciprocate the home stay that Bristol Central took part in fall of 2017. We gave them the flavor of our American culture by visiting Mystic, Boston, and New York, as well as favorite local stops such as Buster's, Spare Time, and Sessions Woods. Our annual Mr. BCHS contest was held last Saturday, and although not all donations have been received from our sponsors yet, we expect approximately $4,500 raised towards the CT Leukemia and Lymphoma Society. We all join in congratulating Nick Osich as our new reigning Mr. BCHS for the school year. Yesterday, May 1st, was decision day for our seniors. I have committed to the University of Connecticut in Stores, where I'm leaning towards a major in international business with a double minor in Spanish and Italian. Regretfully, my time as liaison is coming close to an end. It has been an honor to meet with you each month. I'm excited to work with new applicants for next year. Thank you very much. Any questions?
And you college, you're lucky to get a motivated student like you.
That was a perfect segue, Olivia, because we've just put out applications. We're looking actually for someone who's currently a sophomore and someone who's currently a junior. We'd like to have a rep in training so that they are able to see what it's like, so that it's not a slow start. So I hope that both of our high school principals will advocate for students to become representatives, or at least apply to, and then we'll be meeting with them and interviewing them and making those decisions, hopefully for our June board meeting. So next, I would like to, as part of my report, ask technology education teacher Michael Leclair and his student Sienna Wilkie to join me. Right ahead. You were the teacher. She is the student.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good evening. My name is Michael Leclair. I'm a tech ed teacher at Bristol Eastern High School. We were asked here to come here tonight to show you guys a video that I teach communications, video, TV production at Bristol Eastern High. And we had an opportunity to indirectly work with Julian Lennon, guys, that's John Lennon's son, to create. Okay. I just had to make sure. I want to make sure. So we had an opportunity to create a video for a company called MasterShift, which is a nonprofit organization that does a lot with meditating and Earth Day. That's part of what their company does. We were approached by a substitute at Bristol Eastern High School. She was substituting for me one day, and she really enjoyed what I was doing with the kids in the classroom. And she asked me if we would do a video, or if we're willing to do a video for her. And I said, yeah. At this time, she didn't mention that Julian Lennon was going to narrate the video, but I said sure. She had a storyboard ready to go for this video, and this video was going to be based off of Earth Day. That was this past April 22nd. So she gave us the storyboard, and having Sienna in my class as an independent study for video and TV production, I presented her with the project, and her task was to take the storyboard and create a video that reflected Christina, which was the substitute's vision on how she wanted this video to look. It was a fantastic experience. It's really these experiences that really bring the classroom to life, because as a teacher, I'm teaching these kids skills, but they're be able to take these skills and apply them to a real opportunity for somebody who's real. This video was put all over the world. It has, I believe right now, I don't know what it says up there, but it's in a couple different places on the internet. I believe it has over 100,000 views. I know there's been quite a few people that have subscribed to the Bristol Eastern High School Lancer Productions YouTube channel. So it really gives us an opportunity to show our skills and what we could do at Bristol Eastern High School. Before I turn it to Sienna, I do want to thank you guys for all your support that you do give the CAT, the Career and Technical Education programs. Without your support and administration support and the Board of Ed, the higher, I don't know how to word that, the Board of Ed administration, the people in the offices, without, without their support as well, we couldn't give these opportunities to our students as far as equipment and facilities. So I do thank you for giving us that support at the high school level. And I'm going to turn it over to Sienna. She can tell you a little bit about her experience, and then we will play that video for you.
I just want to say it was a really great experience to work on something that so many people would see, especially something as important as Earth Day. And I took the video production class first semester and then the independent study second semester. So I really used some of the things that I learned in that class to make this video that some of my friends are in it, so we got to work together on this that, helps support this cause, and especially something that Julian Lennon narrated was pretty cool too. No, but
that's not fair.
No, it was indirectly working with him. We didn't get him. We did try to get him down. He's a very busy man. We're hoping that in the future maybe we could work something out with he'll come down. But we didn't get to meet him this time.
So without further ado, I'll show this video.
Is there going to be sound? Is there speakers for?
Let's take the mic out.
We don't have that much technology yet. We're working on it.
Not this one, not this one. There we go.
We don't have Wi-Fi, you gotta go to McDonald's.
Yeah, it's a mine. She's living and breathing just as we are. We don't know her. We cannot do as we will without regard for her well-being. She is our mother and provides for all of us. We are her stewards. We are to respect her. We are to respect her ecosystem. We are to ask when we want something from her, like asking our own mother. Did you know that when you pull something out of the earth, she feels it? Before you pull something out of the earth, ask permission, and the roots will lovingly let go. Only take what you need and give thanks. Mother Earth will regenerate herself. Mother Earth is generous and provides for us all. The oxygen we breathe, the food we eat, the materials to build our homes. Let's collectively give thanks to her by giving back. It's an old Native American tradition that when you take something from the earth, you offer something in return. On April 22nd, 2018, Forest Nation, the Master Shift, and the White Feather Foundation cordially invite you to participate in the world's largest global planting event. Our goal is to plant 1 billion seeds, trees, all over the world. This event is free, and rules are simple. We ask that you plant something that is organic, perennial, and suitable to the growing conditions in your area. Please join us as we collectively give back to Mother Earth for all she has given us. When we give to Mother Earth, we are giving back to people. Give back to Mother Earth. Give back.
for inspiring Sienna, and what a beautiful film for us to get to see. Thank you so much.
It's on YouTube and?
Yeah, it's on YouTube, it's on the Mastership website. Like I said, that was put worldwide, so it's probably reached well over 100,000 views between all the sites.
And its name is, when you go to search?
It's Earth Day. What do we need? Earth Day. Earth Day 2018, narrated by John Lennon. Or Julian Lennon.
It was John up here.
That would be interesting.
Thank you again. Before I go on with our next set of awards, I would like to recognize the new addition to the dais, the board table. Dr. Kate Carbone has joined us. I'm going to ask Mr. Wininger to come up and recognize some students who are being awarded the National Football Foundation Scholar Athlete Awards.
Thank you, Dr. Rowe. I apologize for my attire, but I've been chasing softball and baseball all day and can't believe it wasn't early. We're 0 for 2 today. Congratulations.
It's okay.
I'm recent. I'm pleased to recognize Michael Guzman, Dathan Hickey, and Isaiah Miller. Gentlemen, come on over. Who were recently selected by the National Football Foundation Northern Chapter as 2017-2018 Scholar Athletes. When we met with Doc Boisnall, the director of the Northern Chapter, in April, he mentioned it was very rare to have 2 student athletes honored with this award. He'd never seen 3 recognized in the same year until now. These 3 young men have managed to balance their academic and athletic requirements as members of the National Honor Society and as 3-sport varsity athletes. In the fall, they will continue their academic and athletic careers. Michael will be attending Springfield College, Dathan at Yale University, and Isaiah at Wesleyan University. They'll be honored on Sunday, May 20th at the chapter's annual awards banquet at the AquaTurf in Southington. The Bristol Central community is incredibly proud of their accomplishments. Thank you, guys.
He's obviously taller than I am. Okay. The Connecticut Council for Language Teachers honors students every year with the Award of Excellence in World Languages. So it's a multi-award night for someone in our audience. She's still here. Oh, no, she didn't stay. Oh, she had to leave. Okay, well, we have 3 students from Gina Gallo's Italian class at Bristol Central High School, Olivia Rajat, our student rep, Jazel Fielberty, Italian 4 Accelerated, and Serena Pompey, Italian 4 Academic. Are any of them still with us? Okay, it's a busy season of sports and play rehearsals and so on. So we congratulate them on being such fine language students. Mr. Wininger didn't stick around. However, a student at, yeah, this is going to be that kind of night, right? If you do, I have friends. It's a good thing. Bristol senior Selena Norton is receiving a $5,000 scholarship from Connecticut Public Radio and TV, the Carla Squadrito Scholarship, which is being given to raise everyone's knowledge and expectations that we need to add diversity in the area of television, radio, and other news medias. It's an incredible honor. She is the first recipient, and she's not here with us. She also is busy. I was hoping that Mr. Wininger, who wanted to get back to the games, so split interest tonight. Next, I have another award of a staff member, and I don't see Tony Floyd, do I? Okay, we're gonna have to do these in the off season. So Tony Floyd, who many of you know, is a physical education teacher and coach at Bristol Eastern High School, was recently inducted into the Connecticut Women's Basketball Hall of Fame. He served as the head coach for basketball at Bristol Eastern since 1979. He has a career record of 536 wins and 290 losses, winning the Central Connecticut Conference South Division 10 times, capturing the CCC Tournament Conference title in 1998, and winning state championships in 1983, 87, 90, and 91. In 1987 and 91, his teams were ranked #1 in the state, and in 87, his team was ranked 13th in the nation by USA Today. So we'll pass on congratulations to Tony Floyd. And with that, I was going to give a budget update, but I believe that Commissioner Bibbert summed it up. May 21st, the joint boards will vote on our budget. We will be eliminating about $500,000. We'll be giving recommendations to the board on that and holding a special finance committee meeting in order to share that information. Thank you.
Now come to our consent agenda, which are items 8.1 through 8.2, or 8 through 8.2. Does anybody wish to pull any items out of the consent agenda? Anybody wish to pull any items out of the consent agenda? If not, it appears you're ready to vote. So would someone like to offer up a motion for acceptance of the consent agenda?
So moved. Second.
It's been properly made and seconded. Any comments or questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
And I'd like to recognize Emily Gomes, who I believe is in the back there. Please stand. Emily has been the interim assistant principal at Bristol Eastern High School this year while Dr. Linke took a child care leave. Dr. Linke has chosen to stay home with her young son. And so Emily is now the full-time assistant principal at Bristol Eastern. Congratulations.
Okay, do we have any public comment? Ms. Everett? Does anybody wish from the public that didn't sign up, wish to speak? Does anybody wish to speak? If not, we will move right on to deliberated items. The first item is we need to authorize Dr. Carbone so that she can sign documents and be held accountable. So,
I have a resolution. I have a resolution. Resolutions require a roll call vote. Resolved that Catherine M. Carbone, EDD, Assistant Superintendent of Schools, is hereby authorized to make, execute, and approve on behalf of the Bristol Board of Education any and all contracts and amendments, and to execute and approve on behalf of the Bristol Board of Education other instruments as part of or incident to such contracts and amendments effective until otherwise ordered by the Board of Education Commissioners.
Commissioner O'Brien?
Yes.
Commissioner Caggiano?
Yes.
Commissioner Taylor?
Yes.
Commissioner Bibbert?
Yes.
Commissioner Hens?
Yes.
Commissioner Borowski?
Yes.
Chairman Wilson?
yes.
Unanimous.
Our next item is our quarterly enrollment reports, and Dr. Galloway will lead us through that again.
Good evening, Commissioners. I'll start out by saying there's nothing earth-shattering about this report, so I'll get right to the point. Kindergarten, the class sizes are capped at 22, grades 1 and 2, 23, grades 3 through 5, 28. On the first page, I'll go to Edgewood School. The only grade where the student numbers are up there a little bit would be grade 5. Hubble is steady. Green Hills, grade 1, the numbers are high, but I must say that I'm not concerned about the numbers elevating at this point with less than 40 days. And I'm in regular communication with the registrar about any student movement. Mountain View, steady. Southside, grade 1, and I speak with Dr. Huber. We communicate regularly about his class sizes, no issue there. Any questions on the first page? Moving along to Stafford School. Nothing earth-shaking there. West Bristol, grade 1. The class sizes are up there, but I say again, the numbers have steadied at this point in the year in regard to going over the cap sizes or transporting students across town. The good news, I will say, is the elementary class sizes at the bottom of the page, district-wide, K-5 is 21 students, 21.5 students. It's a good class size number district-wide. On the next page, as we go to Chippens Hill, that's that grade 7. Last year we talked about it as grade 6, moving along that bubble. But I know they're working furiously at Chippens about scheduling, so the team will be working to ensure that things run smoothly when the year starts for next year. And our 2 high schools, total enrollment, Bristol Central and Bristol Eastern at this point, 2291. Moving down to our total student enrollment with our magnet students, which I think, we should talk about that number, is 8580 when you combine the 8189 and the 391. So ladies and gentlemen, that concludes the enrollment report, pending your questions. Yes, sir.
Dr. Galloway, would it be possible to, when you break out the magnet students, that we could break out the correct magnets and then the other magnets, because we don't pay for the other magnets, but we pay for correct magnets. So just so people can get a good handle on how many students we're paying for.
Break out the correct magnets.
Yeah, please.
Okay, no problem.
Through the chair, if I hate to get a little more granular than that even, but it would be nice to identify, and I don't know if this would do that, students that are at the Arts Magnet School as well. Would we be able to get that number and track that and follow that? I know we get a lot of questions, but that would happen.
We had it in the CAFRA report, which I shared with you two months ago.
Okay.
Where we shared all the magnets, art magnets.
Right.
But, I mean, he could get that, but I think if we give it
if we have it
when we go over the CAFRA, if we're correct, we'll get it to you then.
That's fine. Thanks.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Our next item is 10.3, which is Board of Education approval of ed specs for the BCHS underground storage tank.
I'm going to give you the reason for this. The school facilities office is now giving us some reimbursement for removal of underground oil storage tanks. And because of that, they become building projects. So we need to go through the same extremely long motions, which I'm hoping that Mrs. Everett can read for me, for both the one at Central, and then we'll have the one for Eastern as well. And it'll be the same motion, just inserting the names. And then these go to the city to be approved, and then we will also be asking for the operations committee to be named as the building committee to remove these tanks. The total reimbursement will be over $150,000. It was not expected when we put these into the capital plan. I have notified the mayor that we'll be eligible for this reimbursement.
So the motion reads, resolved that that Bristol Central High School Underground Storage Tank Replacement Committee, Operations Committee, approved the education specifications for the underground storage tank replacement at Bristol Central High School located at 480 Wilfrid Street in Bristol.
So moved. Someone move that. Do we have a second? Is there any questions? Does everybody understand what we're doing? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
It was Karen Hintz and Karen Goodwin.
Okay.
The next one is for Bristol Eastern High School.
Resolved that the Bristol Eastern High School Underground Storage Tank Removal Committee, Operations Committee, approved the education specifications for the underground storage tank removal at Bristol Eastern High School located at 632 King Street in Bristol, Connecticut.
So moved. Second.
Okay, Tina got the second. We want to get her in the minutes. Motion been properly made and seconded. Any questions or comments? Thank you, ready to vote? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. And now we are to 10.5, the CEP approval.
Yes.
Who's taking it? Jim.
Sure.
Again. This presentation is, for all intents and purposes, a repeat of the presentation that we did at the Operations Committee earlier this month. Just to review, what is the Community Eligibility Program? This is a non-pricing meal option for each school or school district that participates and serves a low-income area. This year, Connecticut was selected to participate in a pilot program. And what's different about this than just free and reduced lunch is the government imports the families that receive benefits through Medicaid and show up in the FSA, which is the local school food authority. Students that are directly certified through that government import are the students that qualify us or are listed as directly certified. And that percentage of students are called the school's identified student percentage. That ISP number is very important because everything from here on in is going to hinge on that ISP number. Schools that have an eligibility ISP number of 40% or greater are eligible to participate in CEP. The benefits of CEP, obviously, is that all students in the school will receive a free lunch and breakfast, or at least eligible to receive that. And research has shown that when students are well fed, their student achievement is improved, their attendance is improved, and as a result of those two things, the school's test scores improve. Applications are eliminated, so the stigma of a school application is removed. These are currently communities in the state of Connecticut that are participating in the pilot program. There are many more communities that qualify, but these are our current participants. We show up on that list because we currently have 2 schools, West Bristol and Humboldt, that are participating in the program. And on this slide, this takes you through 2 different schools, one that qualifies under this program and one that doesn't. The first school listed here is Chippens Hill Middle School. Currently, Chippens Hill has a number of free and reduced students. 378 receive or qualify for free lunch, 51 qualify for reduced lunch, and the remaining 367 are paid. There's a total of 796 students in the school. So if we combine that 378 and 51, we can see that the free and reduced number that currently we have at Chippens Hill is 53.89%. However, students that are directly certified, remember that import through the government because they somehow qualify for a Medicaid program? This directly certified number is 345, and so the ratio there gives that school an ISP number of 43.71%. That is greater than or equal to the 40, so they qualify for CEP. A school like Northeast Middle School, here are their free and reduced numbers and their paid numbers, the total enrollment, and then the ratio of free and reduced currently, not in the CEP program, but free and reduced, is 41.09. But you can see that that number is different than the directly certified. The directly certified, that ISP number, divided by the total enrollment is 29.75. So that school does not qualify for the CEP program, even though their current free and reduced number is a little bit over 40%. I thought it was important to make that distinction. Next, This is our enrollment for all of our schools. Through the SNAP program, which is the Supplemental Nutritional Assistance Formula, and where the government is pulling from. There are some other programs like TAMP, which is a temporary assistance for needy families, that will also qualify them. Versus the total enrollment. This is the current free and reduced number, but this is the new ISP number. So I've highlighted for you anything that you see in yellow. These are the schools that qualify for CEP because their identified student percentage is greater than 40%. You can see that our district total, you can see that our district total down the bottom, if we average out, our district total is ever so slightly over 40. That'll come up again in a little bit. So here's how we calculate the claim rate. They multiply that ISP number that everything hinges on by a factor of 1.6 to calculate what the free claim rate is for that school. So here's an example. West Bristol has an ISP number, an identified student percentage of 53.10%. That 53.10 times the factor of 1.6 is 84.96. So almost 85% we would be reimbursed at the free rate versus the paid rate. And I'll share with you what that difference is. The reimbursement rate for a free breakfast, if they qualify in that free 84.96%, is $2.09. But the reimbursement for a paid breakfast is 30 cents. Likewise, for lunches, the reimbursement rate for the free lunch is $3.25 per lunch, but a paid lunch is reimbursed at 33%. So here's how that works out in our example of West Bristol, which has that 84.96 free claim and 15.04 paid claim. This is a snapshot of the month of February. That was the last full month that we had when we put this presentation together. In the month of February at West Bristol, we served 5,758 breakfasts. So 84.96% of that 5,758 is 4,892. That's how many would be reimbursed at 209, while the remaining 866 would be reimbursed at 30 cents. You do that math out, and our total reimbursement for breakfast is $10,484 in the month of February at West Bristol. Likewise, for lunches, we've served 12,479 lunches. 84.96% of that would be reimbursed at the free rate, so 10,594 lunches would be reimbursed at $3.25. The remaining 1,875 reimbursed at 33 cents, which gives us a total lunch reimbursement of $35,049. Together, that's a $45,533 reimbursement at West Bristol on this program. It's a lot of math. Is everybody okay? Fantastic. These are the 7 schools that meet the threshold. Those schools that were highlighted in yellow that on their own exceed the 40%. This is their ISP number individually, Chippens Hill, Greens Hill, all the way down. Times that 1.6 factor, this would be the claim rate. So we just went through West Bristol with the 84.96%. All these schools would work in that exact same fashion, but West Bristol is working our highest. If we consider all of our schools, remember that slide where our district total is ever so slightly over 40? We would have to share those higher percentages with the schools that don't qualify. And so every single school would go in at 41.14%. Times the 1.6 gives us a 65.82% reimbursement across the board. Does that make sense? So how does this translate to revenue? First, let's talk about the current participation that we have. These are the percentage that are going through the lunch line and getting hot lunch at schools. You can see that when we're running this program at Hubble, we have 89.83 participation rate. And at West Bristol, we have 82.56%. That's how many kids are going through the lunch line. It's a lot higher in those schools because right now, everybody qualifies for a paid lunch at those schools. But as you glance through the high schools are probably always going to be a little bit lower. And the rest of the schools, these are their current participation rates. So what we've done for you is if we have 50% of the kids going through the line, 60%, 70%, 80%, I think it's probably getting up into 90 and 100% unrealistic to think that every day consistently that many kids will be through the lunch line. We've got absences, we've got kids that brown bag it, and so forth. These would be the reimbursement dollars at those rates, These would be the reimbursement dollars at those rates. We've done the math out for you just like we did in the other example. Which is kind of meaningless until you consider the expenses. So as more meals are served, our supplies go up, our cost for food goes up, our cost for labor goes up. So what we've done is we have estimated what those costs will be based on the amount of meals that we would be serving at those percentages. And you can see down here, annual reimbursement less expenses, with only 50% of students participating. And this is using all schools. This is the 65% reimbursement rate. All schools, if only half the kids go through the lunch line, we are at negative $664,000. If we can get that up to 60% or 70%, if we have a 70% consistent participation, we are still at negative $324,000. If we're at 80%, which is probably where we will fall, considering that Hubble and West Bristol are in the 80th percentile, we're still at negative $163,000. Even with 90% of students participating across the board, we are negative $1,530. That's with all schools participating. When I first put these numbers together, I thought of that flu epidemic that we went through this year and the absent rate, and would it be realistic to try to get a 90% participation rate? For the money person, that's scary. If we have 7 schools participating, these are the 7 schools that qualify on their own. So we can use the higher reimbursement rate because we wouldn't be sharing it across the district. And if we look at that same percentage participation numbers and where we will fall after we have our revenue less expenses, you can see that when we get to between 70 and 80%, consistently, it's the 80% mark where we're going to break even, which is how the program is designed. This is not meant to be a moneymaker for the school system. It's designed to feed kids. In speaking with our director of food services, we think that we can have a consistent 80% participation rate in the 7 schools that meet the threshold on their own. And that is the end of the presentation. If you have any questions, I'm happy to take them. It's a lot of math.
Through the chair, I do have.
Let's put a motion on the floor first, and then we'll entertain questions, and if anybody from the public wants to comment, we can do that. So, would someone like to read the motion?
I didn't get the motion, but I'd love to freestyle the motion.
Right on your screen.
Oh,
On your screen.
all right, sorry. Fun to freestyle. I move we approve the application to add Chippens Hill Middle School, Green Hills, Ivy Drive, Southside, and Stafford schools to the community eligibility provision.
Okay, do you have a second?
Second.
Okay, do you have a second? Okay, now questions.
So I did miss the first presentation, and one thing that I just picked up in what you were just telling me, our current free and reduced district-wide, 51.82% of students are receiving some type of aid currently, whether it's free or reduced lunch. And then when we have the new numbers, the total number comes to 41.14%. So it actually, in a sense, goes down, but it shifted our balance in the schools. Am I reading that correctly or not? Or hearing that?
What happened was with the Medicaid upload,
Yep.
our rate before the upload was about 44.5% free and reduced lunch qualified for all the schools as an average. Then they added in the Medicaid qualified, which is what took it over 52%. So at this point, for April, May, and June of this year, we have students who are now receiving free or reduced breakfast or lunch as a result of the Medicaid upload already.
Right. And that rate's at about 52% then?
That's the district
That's the
average.
district average.
Yes.
Okay.
But it's not the same as this ISP number, so that's what gets it.
Gets it very confusing, but
So I think you're looking at the bottom line of that slide.
Exactly.
So that 51.82 that is the number of students that are receiving a free lunch program combined with the number of students that are receiving a reduced lunch program.
Yep.
Our reduced numbers are pretty significant. So the 41.14, that's our combined percentage as a district that would determine our reimbursement rate.
yeah, formulas are different.
Right, through that identified student percentage number.
Is there any other questions? Commissioner?
Questions or comments?
Can you hold off on the comments and let the public speak if it's not a question? Any other questions? Does anybody from the public wish to comment on this matter? Does anybody from the public wish to comment on CEP?
Or they can ask a question.
You can ask a question too. Okay. All right, now.
I don't know if this is appropriate, but through the chair, and I'm actually just picking this up, I was busy all afternoon, but I know we did receive a letter from the public, and public in this case happens to be Cheryl Tebow. I don't know if you want to read that or have somebody else read that, but I view that as public comment.
I view it as a personal email, but if you wish to read it during your comments,
Do you have her permission to read it? She may not want it read.
Yeah, no, I have her permission.
Okay, I think Karen had the first comment, so I will let you.
Yes, I wholeheartedly support this. In addition to what Jill mentioned about the studies showing that children who have been fed do better in school, as parents, we all know that when a child has eaten or has not eaten, that can be a problem. Most importantly, what I see, the students that will be affected by this the most, the kids who are already on free lunch, we're good. The kids who are on reduced lunch, what is it, 40 cents? Some of them, people may not believe this, but don't have that 40 cents. And then the next level, this is the crucial level. The families that don't qualify for reduced lunch, that are just above that level, but can't afford to pay, these are the kids that are going to really, really benefit from this. They can't afford to pay, but they just don't qualify. And that's a gray area that we can't let that continue. So I look forward to the day when all of our schools are on this program.
Anybody else wish to comment? Anybody else wish to comment?
I have quite a few comments. I would like to read Cheryl Thebau's letter.
She's not here, but I don't think it would be fair to read that.
I could
if she wished to comment, she could have come and commented, and she chose not to.
This is true. She did send it to the board, so as public record, I would like to say for the meeting minutes that the entire board did receive this letter with...
I didn't receive it from her.
No?
No.
I thought it was sent to everybody.
No, I did see it. I didn't receive it. I don't think she'd want it read.
She didn't send it to me.
Okay.
Well, you can summarize it, Jeff.
Yeah, and I will summarize. I mean, I think the community eligibility program is something that I struggled with 2 years ago. And 2 years ago, as a brand new board member, we looked at the numbers. We had 4 schools that were eligible at that time. I made the choice at that point to support this program because of the reasons that Commissioner Vibert just mentioned. My suggestion at that point was that we should add all 4 schools if we're going to do this, because all 4 schools were eligible. Again, I don't want to go back and do too much revisionist history, but I was told that it wouldn't be a smart thing to do all 4 schools, and I see 2 of the schools on the list that were eligible then, because logistically it would be very difficult to get these kids through the line, to hit the numbers, and that was concerning to me. As you all also noted, that this is version 3.2 of our 3-year look back at food services. When we look at the accounting from 3 years ago to now, we have changed our numbers dramatically over again and again. Jill, please do not take anything against this. I think we're there. I think we have the numbers. But what's concerning to me is that in year 15-16, without CEP, we turned our first profit in food services. It's a $3 million pass-through budget, so profit and loss is really not a great way to explain it, but it is a profit. We carried that over to 16-17 when it was the first year we added CEP. We didn't do quite as well, and now in the 3rd year with 2 schools on CEP that are hitting the numbers very clearly, as we saw here, we're in the negative. There are potentially other factors. Again, I'm a little bit leery that this program is going to be 100% successful. I understand the intent of the program is not necessarily to make money, but it is something that I worry about. And when we look at the facts, and the other thing that just struck me here is we have 52% of our students right now receiving free and reduced lunch, higher than what even that ISP number comes out to be, higher than what we had calculated years ago of students that need it. And I think this is the part that the letter points out. Are we taking federal funds, federal tax dollars, and spending them appropriately by feeding about 50% of our students, and we can argue that that number may be smaller, I'll even go with 30%, they don't need it. I was born and raised in Bristol. I don't call Bristol a big city. I still look at it as a town. We are making a big decision tonight to move in the category of Bridgeport, Hartford, Meriden, Naugatuck, New Britain, New Haven, New London, Vernon, Waterbury, and West Haven. On this board, we had an awful lot of support for our current mayor, whose major advocacy to be elected was that we need to spend money appropriately in education, and to do that would increase our property values. Well, I'm all for increasing property values. My rhetorical question back to this group is that adding free and reduced lunch across the district to nearly every child, and then think about these kids in the other 4 schools that aren't going to get free and reduced lunch, what's going to happen to our property values? Is that a decision that we want to make for the city? And it weighs heavily on me, and I am not alone. I will unfortunately speak for Jen Doobie to some degree. She had an emergency and had to leave. I think you would have heard some of these same arguments from her. Are we being good stewards of taxpayer dollars by feeding nearly half the children in this district that may or may not need it? And I get the push for this program. I understand it, and my heart gets it, but I don't know that it makes full sense to me.
Commissioner Taylor.
I just wanted to say that when I was elected, when all of us were elected, we were elected for the students. We were elected for education. We were elected for the schools. And I think some of this talk about, support for mayors, some of this talk about taxpayer dollars, of course you want to be responsible with them, but our first priority is to the children. It's to the students. It is to feed those children. It's part of education. It's part of the job of a school, is to feed the community, to make sure that they are at the best learning capacity they can be. So I guess just hearing some of that, it really just, I don't hear where the value of the students is. I don't hear where you're putting the students first in this. And it just kind of bothers me a little bit. And obviously I'm for this. I teach at a school that has it. I don't think getting the participation rate is going to be tough. I'm pretty sure that the reason why we didn't do it right away is we had to get logistics. It's easier to start with 2 schools, so now they know, okay, we're going to do this walk and, take your breakfast. And once you have that in place, which now we know what to do, it will be easy enough to get the 80%. So I just wanted to say that I think we should keep the students first. I think we should think about their health, about their levels of education, and keeping them fed. Because if they're not fed, if they're hungry, if they're cold, I mean, Maslow knows you can't teach them.
Mr. Chairman?
The only comment I make is let's try not to make we statements and you statements, make I statements, and I think we'll be a lot safer. Go ahead.
Okay. First, I'd like to start by correcting some information that Commissioner Caggiano shared. 2 years ago, 2 schools qualified, not 4. The additional 2 schools would have qualified by averaging with the other 2. They did not qualify on their own. And part of the reason we didn't proceed with 4 schools, because it was the thinnest of margins. And we wanted to be fiscally responsible and pilot a program to ensure that it was viable. We decided to roll it out in a much more prudent way and only enrolled the 2 schools that actually qualified. And what we're looking at this year is taking that pilot program and extending it by adding the 5 schools that qualify on their own and not averaging in any other schools. Because we feel it's a safer margin, the program will be much more likely to be successful. It's very clear when you look at the numbers that Ms. Brown presented to us tonight, the variability between the reimbursement rates, $2.09 for breakfast versus 30 cents. The government's intent in this program is very clear. And I also think it's naive when we talk about spending tax dollars. Any food assistance program in this country is heavily driven by lobbyists. You look at WIC and parents receive milk and cereal. That's driven by dairy and agriculture. Many of the products that school cafeterias receive come from federal programs. They come from straight to us from the federal government. So these programs work hand in glove with groups that produce these foods. So there's connectivity. If the federal government in their infinite wisdom sees this as a benefit to the schools, I think it's fiscally irresponsible of us not to take advantage, but to take advantage in the most prudent, cautious way we can. Statistical data about the learning impacts on students, the learning impact of hunger on students is probably as old as I am, if that's even humanly possible. And we can argue whether or not Bristol's a big city or not. 60,000, we're certainly a small city. And the numbers have changed.
11th largest in the state.
11th largest city in the state. And I just had one more point, and I'm going to get there. We can say, do we want to put ourselves in a group with Vernon and Waterbury and New Britain? And this isn't something that we're doing. This is something that's already happened. These are demographics that exist. These weren't created by anybody sitting at this dais tonight. And I think I'm done. Thank you.
Anybody else that has not spoken yet wish to speak? Mr. O'Brien.
Whereas I firmly believe there's a direct correlation between property values and support for education in the community, I don't think that approving CEP will affect that formula. I think that it's not going to be a magnet for additional students who would have been approved for free and reduced lunch to move to Bristol. I think it's merely a commitment to feed the people who are already here.
Is that it? Okay. Anybody else? Joe, you have not spoken yet, so please, the floor is yours.
Hi, I actually have a question. I don't know if I caught this during the operations committee meeting, but if an ISP for a school, let's say I'm looking at Ivy Drive, is at 40%, goes below 40%, does that school get kicked off?
No.
No.
Now, when we sign up, we have 4 years of eligibility guaranteed. We can, however, rescind our approval if we see that it's not working.
It's a win-win.
In the same token, if our numbers went the other way, we could recalibrate, if you will, and add those schools in and recalibrate. And we're starting, for those 2 schools that we had online before, we're starting on 4-year tenure back over.
Right, a new 4 years.
I mean, students who are eligible at Ivy Drive or other schools for free or reduced lunch will continue to be eligible for free or reduced lunch. but the other students who make up the remainder of the population will still have to pay full price.
Yes, Joe, I know you started before. You kind of took it away.
So our risk is about, if we achieve over 80% participation, we break even, so to speak. Let's say we take the lowest school at 40% off that list we're trying to improve tonight. Does that risk change? So will it go from 80% to 70%? Do you know what I'm trying to say?
In the example of the 7 schools, we used each school's individual threshold number. So it would be very slight. If we were using the full school model with all of our schools, and we took off the lowest school, you would see more of an impact. But because it's the 7 schools, each of their individual numbers, you're not going to see the impact that I think you're asking about.
Is that it?
I had one more, but.
Well, you have the floor, so.
What else is important? I have another comment.
Okay. Did you have a comment, Jeff?
A couple I'd like to respond to a few things. We talked about a city of 60,000. I also just have another perspective. And again, I'm offering a perspective that is not just mine, but I've heard from people, and I know that Commissioner Dubey would be on my side for this. 60,000 people.
Hold on a second. You can't really bring someone into the table that's not at the table.
She happens to be a Board of Ed commissioner.
I know she is.
But let me say this, 60,000 people live in the city. About 15% of the population sends children to school. Of that, 4,000, which is really, when you break it down, about 5% of our total population is in an area of need that we call. We are going to bump that up to about 10%, 6,000 to 8,000 students getting this benefit, which is clearly a benefit. The part that gets me that's hard about this is I hear all of your arguments that this is the right thing to do for education. It's secondarily involved with that. We've talked about the fact that what happens if schools fall under? What happens if the federal government pulls this program away from us, which is already spending trillions of dollars over its annual budget? Some of this money is state money. We all know that the state of Connecticut is in a fiscal crisis.
It's money, federal money.
There's state money that's coming in right now for the free and reduced, but we don't know if these programs are going to be sustained. And I'm not here to have this back and forth debate. I'm telling you that I believe this will be a deterrent for middle class Americans to move to this city. You all have talked to me about the fact that our low per pupil expenditure is a deterrent. And I look around and I'll ask real estate agents, how many people have come to the real estate office and said, what's your average per pupil expenditure? I do believe that middle class Americans that are looking for places to live, and I saw an awful lot of for sale signs when I took my long bike ride this morning in Bristol, are going to know that maybe free lunch for universally is not something that's going to be a sales thing for them. So it's a big decision. Do I understand that this is going to happen whether I want it to or not? I just want to present the other side, and there are 85% of the people that live in this town that aren't sending kids to school. And I think we need to remember that sometimes. So that's my thing. The Julian Lennon video was actually pretty good too. He talked about the earth, and one of the things that stuck out to me was only take what you need. And I just think that there is another side to this. We are going to respectfully disagree. I'm not going to go back and forth on this issue. I'm pretty confident with the many people that I spoke with that this is not as easy as a decision that I think we're making it out to be. And we looked at it specifically, and it was sold as a fiscal potential gain. And then I go back to 2 years of, quite honestly, misery on this food services budget, where we couldn't even work on a $3 million budget to give me straight answers until 3.2 version. I worry about that. And those are my thoughts, and I appreciate you listening.
I think our liaison has something to say.
Can I allow the liaison to make a comment, Mr. Wilson?
Yes.
Well, and the mayor and the council are very serious about addressing property tax. home evaluations and raising our property values. And I'm pretty confident that we're going to be able to do it. However, if we follow your train of thought, Jeff, I think we need to contact Mark Thomas in marketing. We're going to have to change the All Heart City advertising thing, because I'm very concerned about property values, but I'm even more concerned about hungry children. So I'll be on record for saying that. I certainly don't want children to go hungry under any circumstance. Okay. And I'm concerned about my home and my value of my home. But I'm more concerned about hungry children.
And I would just like a quick response to that, because we currently feed 52% of our kids with free and reduced lunch right now. We are offering a program that is paid for, in this case, by state and federal funds. And I hope that we don't leave kids hungry. And again, I understand there might be this little gray area of a small percentage. For that small percentage, is it worth moving to the next phase, which is generally universal free breakfast lunch?
So you're okay with just a small percentage?
We really don't want to have a conversation here. I've tried to give you a lot of license on it.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay, yes, we have comments over here on this side.
Yes. Commissioner Caggiano, you said that this year, no, I'm correcting something.
Okay.
It's not argument, that we're looking at a deficit in food services. I'm going to correct that. We are not. This document does show that there's a potential deficit, but if you look closely under the end of year inventory change, that is to be determined. We don't have that yet. So it's highly likely that we will end the year at a break even or with a small surplus. We cannot say that there's a deficit because we do not have all the figures in that we need yet. I also want to say that I truly do not believe that as well that home values are going to go down because of this. This is the Board of Ed, not City Council, so I'm taking off my Board of Ed hat for a moment because we're here to support the students. Hungry children, as Jill said, studies have shown they don't perform as well. There are issues in school, attendance, all kinds of issues. We have the kids eating. That's a huge benefit. Test scores are going to go up. Attendance is probably going to go up. That is what is going to bring young families in to buy homes here. They don't ask real estate agents, what is your per student expenditure? They say, how are your schools? And the real estate agent can say, our kids are scoring great. They're doing well. We have this, we have that. They don't say we spend $14,000 a year. I truly believe that this has the potential to raise our property values. And if you can't feed 100 children, feed one.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to clarify, it's been stated a couple times that this is federal and state money. That's categorically untrue. There is no state money involved in the community eligibility provision. We get a minimal amount of money from the state of Connecticut for our general food service budget. There's no state money involved in this program. And I will say that if the federal government called us up tomorrow and said, we've got this great program where it's universal free and reduced lunch for every kid who qualifies at this mark, I'd say sign us up. That program doesn't exist. Right. This is the program that exists.
Okay, does anybody have any new information that has not been shared yet? If not, I think you're ready to vote. Yes, Joe.
I'm sorry. Might as well ask the question.
Okay, yes.
In the event that we go below the 80% and there's a net loss, is it out of the school's budget or the city? Like, who would we go to balance that out, or is that our loss on our side?
It's our budget. In the past, the Board of Education has either transferred money to the food service budget, or years ago when the deficit was $250,000, the city had us pay it over many years.
But as the superintendent said, as we go along, if we find this is not working, we're not obligated to stay with it.
Okay. And Commissioner Wilson, I'm sorry, but obviously a lot was directed at me. I just also want to point out for the record that there was not one argument for this program that revolved around student achievement, accountability, better test scores. We have 2 years, and I'm just saying with data, we have 2 years of experience, and we didn't make that argument right here tonight either. This was completely, and I spent extra time to go talk to Jill. I was not at that operations committee meeting. We're looking at this from a fiscal standpoint only. That's what we have made this argument for and through. And again, that's where a lot of the questions were. I think that needs to be pointed out.
I think we made comments about its impact on achievement.
We just made comments.
We did not have time. You're right. This provision, this new accounting method was added less than a month ago, and we did not have time to do. We just don't have time.
Yep.
And we're
so
not
I
looking
just
at it
also wanted to
simply
correct
fiscal.
the record that we don't have data that by adding this program, our students have better test scores. And that was what was just said that would have been relayed to the real estate agents. We don't have that data in this district at this time.
I'm not looking at it simply fiscal. I'm looking at it because children will eat now that haven't
That's
been
the part
eating.
that does get me more. I understand that argument.
We can provide some data for you. Hubble School was a school of distinction this year, recognized by the State Department of Education because of the growth in achievement of their high needs students.
Mr. O'Brien, did you have something you wanted to add before we?
Well, although we've been criticized severely because of deficits in food service, it's a service we need to provide. I think the benefits are understood. They didn't have to be debated whether or not students perform better if they're well fed and alert as opposed to hungry and concerned. So yes, it is a financial issue because, as Dr. Moreau just stated, if there is a deficit, we have to provide the money from the Board of Ed budget, and obviously we don't have money to spare. So it is a fiscal concern, but I thought that we didn't emphasize the benefits because they were all well understood.
I'm not very sorry, Chris, but I just have to remind people of history, and this is a short history. Before I started on this board, there was quite a bit of a political turmoil over outsourcing food services. So your statement now to tell me that we have to provide food services is technically not true, because we could have outsourced this business 2 years ago. We could still outsource this business.
By provide, I meant either ourselves or outsource. I didn't mean that we had to do it, but there was that debate, and I think it was decided that outsourcing is not unsuccessful in many other places, and we have, with the help of the union and negotiations, been able to bring down the deficit to a point where it's either break even or slightly either way.
That's a nice information, but it's really not germane to our discussion now.
Just, if I'm going to be
point of information, that's all.
Yes.
Point of information that I've said has been counted every time. I just want to make the record straight.
I have a motion on the floor.
You have a motion on the floor.
I think
We
I
have a roll call
seconded it.
duly made and seconded. We will do a roll call vote. Ms. Everett.
Commissioner O'Brien?
Yes.
Commissioner Gagliano?
Surprisingly, no, right?
Commissioner Taylor?
Yes.
Commissioner Herbert?
Yes.
Commissioner Hintz?
Yes.
Commissioner Grabowski?
Yes.
Chairman Wilson?
Yes.
Mr. Wong?
Thank you. We did that in a very civil way. That's good.
Yes.
Thank
I
you,
appreciate
Chris.
that. Thank you.
We got a long agenda.
Yeah, we do.
Sometimes it's hard. All right, where are we? I lost my place.
Agenda.
I don't know how. Oh, I don't know.
Okay, 11.1, AP Computer Science Curriculum. This is the second.
Go home.
This is the second reading. The first reading occurred in the Student Achievement Committee.
Could be just as excited to see you.
So we have Bernabe here to answer any of our questions. Do you want to have anything you want to present?
I can keep it short. It's 9 o'clock if you like an answer. We'll leave it to questions.
All right, so if anybody doesn't have any questions, I would entertain a motion to approve the AP Computer Science curriculum.
So
Second.
Second. Any questions or comments?
I do have a comment here. Oh, go ahead, Tom, you're first.
Well, my only question is, are these going to be additional courses? Are they taught by additional teachers, or are these
We will
going to
not need any
be?
additional staffing. We've actually been running this, the course as a pilot this year with our current staffing. We're going to have one section at Bristol Eastern High School next year with about 20 students enrolled without any additional staffing needed.
So it's basically an upgrade from whatever we have now, from accelerated or?
We actually did not have any computer science programming within the district, so this will be our first course in.
That's actually a great segue, if you don't mind, Chris. Am I up? I think that's excellent, and that's one of the things that I did want to comment here. I did attend the Student Achievement Committee meeting, and if we can continue to offer classes, in particular, I'm going to talk about this one, that offer that diverse technologic advancement for students. I think that's important. In the state of Connecticut, even though there's a lot of gloom and doom, there are a lot of jobs that aren't being filled in these areas that are more technological and or hands-on. And I do fear, and this is another fear I have, people may think I'm crazy, is that we program all of our students. I've done it to my own kids, that they need to go to high school and then to college. And I think things like this open up the door. So I'd love to see more of these types of things offered. So I commend you on that.
That was actually my pitch tonight, because there's about 6,500 open jobs right now, and we're graduating in Connecticut about 400 computer science degrees per year. And the earnings are about 40% higher than the average graduate. So thank you.
It is a college degree. Any further comment? If not, you're ready to vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We're now on to AP US History.
Which I also presented to the Student Achievement Committee on April 23rd. I don't know if anybody has any questions, but this is an already existing course, and changes have been made by the College Board, so we have to keep updated with those changes.
So again, this was the first reading was in Student Achievement. This is the second reading. So I would entertain a motion to approve the AP US Government and Politics curriculum.
So moved.
Second.
Second. Any questions or comments? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Thank you. The next course is AP Seminar, which was a pilot course in 2016-17, met with great success, so we are asking for approval of that curriculum.
Did we miss?
Yeah, research curriculum.
Oh,
We'll go back.
okay. Well, they are two courses within the AP
But you have to
capstone
take seminar
program,
before you
so
take research, so we have to approve seminar before we approve research, right?
I thought it was reverse. I thought the textbook had research first and then seminar, but maybe I'm looking at it.
Okay, I'm just looking at the agenda. So we'll go ahead.
Go with
and
whichever
approve
one you
this.
want, Amy.
You know, we're very flexible. So we have AP Seminar curriculum, second reading. Again, the first reading is in Student Achievement. I would entertain a motion to approve AP Seminar curriculum.
So moved.
Second.
Second. Any questions, comments? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Now we will go back and do AP Research curriculum.
Which was also presented at the Student Achievement Committee on April 23rd. We are requesting your approval to adopt that curriculum.
So moved. So moved. Do we have a second?
Second.
Joe is a second. Any comments or questions? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Thank you.
Thank you. Now, the next agenda items and the next couple are first readings. So, no decision will be made tonight. It's something we always say when we have these first readings is if you want to contact any of our administrators about the textbooks. You know, we used to have a board member like to read the textbooks. I don't see any of you going out and reading them, but they're in their office and you're glad to peruse them if you so desire. But go ahead, Lisa.
So the first textbook is to support the AP Computer Science course. The committee has selected Java Software Solutions called Foundations of Program Design by Lewis and Lofton. We were able to budget for this within our current budget this year, so we will not need any additional funds. The text provides multiple opportunities for students to achieve the concepts and skills through real-world programming exercise with a strong emphasis on problem solving. The critical concepts and skills are highlighted throughout the text, thoroughly explained, and build an appropriate progression for students to form a deep understanding of the content. The text also includes an online component, which is extremely important, where students can practice their programming and be provided with immediate and corrective feedback. There's also programming projects which are included, which vary in difficulty and address the different needs of our students. So I have the book available in my office if there's any questions or anybody would like to look over it. And otherwise, we'll come back in June for second reading.
Anybody have any questions tonight? In view of that, we'll move right on.
I just have a quick question on all of these textbooks. Is there any time constraints as far as ordering any of these? I'm just wondering if we need to.
It would need to go through by the June 30th.
Okay, so you're
we'll
good.
Bring it back to the next June meeting. Thank you.
One other quick question.
Sure.
Online availability with these two? We've asked about this in different things. Did I miss it too, by the way? Did you say that? Oh, no.
We still don't have that one-to-one capability, and I don't think this is reasonably priced. We're buying 20, so I don't think we're going to save that much.
Oh, 20. Yeah, makes sense. Okay, thanks.
Yeah. Oh, I'm next again. Our second text is to support AP Environmental Science, which you spoke earlier about tonight, running nice project. Our current AP Environmental text is outdated. It's over 10 years old and starting to contain some outdated information. So again, the text selected is Environmental Science for AP by Friedland and Rolea. The committee chose this text in its online resources because each chapter began with a case study to spark discussion and is followed up with authentic applications that promote a higher order thinking. The chapters are broken down into manageable modules for students that highlight important vocabulary and make math connections for students that they need to master the science content. There's also a wealth of AP-style questions for students to self-assess and monitor progress throughout the course. And again, we've budgeted through our current budget to do this.
Okay. Thank you. Amy gets to come back for AP US Government and Politics next week.
Right, so we went through the process with 3 different texts, and the text that we ended up selecting is American Government, Institutions, and Policies. This is actually the draft version. The official version isn't available yet. It's supposed to be available this month, so the College Board just made those final changes in March. So the text will be hot off the press. The reason why we chose this book is because the scaffolding it provides students to help them attain the concepts they need to learn within the curriculum through visual representations, including images, charts, and graphs. It offers authentic critical thinking exercises. It identifies appropriate vocabulary to support attainment of broader concepts. It presents information objectively, which is important when you're talking about a social studies text. And it connects students with a digital version of the text and opportunities to extend their learning. And I can go on and on about the different supports that they have for students. But this textbook is actually by the same authors that teachers are already using in their classrooms, so they're very familiar with it and they're very satisfied with the text that they currently have. So this too influenced our choice to go with this selection because we know it. If anybody has any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. Otherwise, the text will be in the Office of Teaching and Learning if you would like to come and do some browsing. The next text is AP Research, and I don't have a physical text for that. We actually received an online version of the text. That's how we browse. So if you want to come to my office to check out that text, I'll have to give you my login credentials so that I can allow you to do that. Just pull out my notes. We've been busy in the departments within the humanities. So the name of the text is Practical Research, Planning and Design, the 11th edition. The reason why we selected it is because it highlights the learning outcomes at the start of each chapter and revisits them at the end. These learning outcomes align with the curriculum objectives of AP Research. It supports students in exploring topics of inquiry as they relate to personal interest. It supports students in designing, planning, and implementing an investigation of their own research question. It requires students to engage in reflection as it relates to a targeted step of the process within their own research, emphasizes the research process as recursive, not linear, and it not only embeds the attainment of academic content and skills, but also emphasizes the importance of perseverance within the research field. And it too provides online access for students who prefer this type of presentation. I'm going to cut it off there unless anybody has any questions. And next, AP Seminar. I don't have that text, not even in this format. That too was an online preview that we accessed, so I would have to provide you the same way of accessing it too if you wanted to see it. We selected this because it really, they say, I say, is a text that provides a structure for writing argument. It allows for synthesis of information using multiple resources. It scaffolds the information to support independence and preparation for the performance task requirement. It provides authentic critical thinking exercises at the end of each reading. It prepares students with the skills needed for AP research, and it offers participation in an online commentary feature. And I went to go visit, I went to I went to go see Penny Kittle. I don't know if any of you know her. She is a guru in literacy education, and she teaches in New Hampshire. She's written a lot of books, and she uses this in her own courses at the high school that she teaches at. So I think that makes it a good recommendation as well. Any questions? We'll be seeking a decision in June.
We'll all be knocking on your door.
Okay.
So we have information processing textbooks next, and I would hope that
What did you touch?
jinx like that. I just wanted to take a moment to acknowledge the two supervisors and their leadership of all the curriculum and textbook work that they've done this year. So that 5-minute presentation really doesn't encapsulate all of the hours that have gone into the curriculum and textbook approval. So now information processing textbook, and to make this a little bit more engaging, I thought I'd start with a challenge. So my challenge to all of you is to guess the year. In what year was Google Chrome, was Twitter just launched? Google Chrome as a browser did not yet exist and wouldn't for another 2 years. Instagram was 4 years away from launching. Cloud storage didn't yet exist, and iCloud wouldn't exist for another 5 years. People still rented movies from Blockbuster. It would be another 4 years until the first iPad launched, and there is no iPhone yet. Yes, on the year. Anybody?
I would say 2006.
2010.
I would say
2006.
Right.
And the reason why I say that is because that's the last time our information processing textbooks were approved. And technology has changed since then. So we're definitely in need of a new resource for the course. The teachers of the course really stretched out that 2006 resource as long as they possibly could. And I know it is true that now with technology, we can use technology to find out how to use other technology. So certainly there's plenty of resources and support that are available out there to individuals who want to learn more about word processing, graphic design, using spreadsheets and presentations
limitations, but I believe for a course such as information processing, we need to have a consistent resource that's used by both high schools for both of the courses. So we are in need of a common resource, even though teachers and students will likely use some of the resources that are now available to them technologically. After the curriculum for information processing was revised and approved this past March, 2 of our business teachers, Mr. John Harris and Ms. Michelle St-Pierre, reviewed 6 textbooks and selected 2 for the course. One resource is based on Microsoft Office technologies, and they are choosing that textbook because that is still the platform that's most often used in business. The other text that they've selected and are putting forth for your approval is based on Google technologies, knowing that it's a growing platform for home, school, and work. The textbooks being presented here tonight have the highest ratings from all of the 6 textbooks that they reviewed. The total cost of the textbooks is $19,474.90, and they were budgeted for this purpose in the 17-18 school year and have been accounted for in all of the balances that you've received. With this purchase, there are online and print resources that will be available both to teachers and students. So again, this is the first reading, and we'll present again for your approval. Don't talk with your hands.
You must have nice jewelry. So now we go to what we talked about earlier in the meeting, some of our policy revisions. And our first policy that we're going to revise is policy 5117.4, intra-district transfer.
Yes, good evening again, Commissioners. So all of these policies we had met on previously this month in the policy subcommittee. They were discussed and revisions were proposed at that time. And I know you've had access to them prior to this meeting. First policy 5117.4, intra-district transfers. Revisions here include updated language regarding relevant law, as well as language to inclusionary language for homeless students.
Move to approve the revisions to policy 5117.4.
Second.
Been properly moved and seconded. Any questions or comments? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Next policy, policy 5117.5, school attendance areas. This policy addresses concerns regarding racial imbalance, updated language regarding the relevant laws, and also wording, some changes of wording regarding equitable educational opportunities for students throughout the district of Bristol.
Move to approve policy 5117.5.
Second. Do we have someone second?
I second it.
Oh, second. Okay.
I'll speak up.
Any comments, questions? Think you're ready to vote? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Okay, policy and regulation 5118.1, homeless students. Revisions here include updated language to relevant laws as well as alignment with provisions in McKinney-Vento, which is the federal legislation. Specifically, language with the provision of removing barriers to enrollment, and this would be expectations with regard to transfer of records, health records, student records, etc.
Move to approve the revisions to policy and regulation 5118.1.
Second.
We have a properly made motion and seconded. If not, any questions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Next policy and regulation 5125, student records and confidentiality. Again, revisions here are going to include updated language to meet the requirements, legislative requirements. We also have expanded definitions of what constitutes a student record, remedy for disputes regarding records between parent and guardian and the district, as well as significant updates to relevant HIPAA and FERPA information and disclosures.
Move to approve the revisions to policy and regulation 5125.
Second.
Properly made and seconded. Any questions or comments? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Next policy and regulation, 5131.111, video surveillance. Updates here include requirements for posting and disclosure of video. It adds language regarding the use of video to control access to buildings, as well as the use and maintenance of video by the Bristol Public Schools.
Move to approve the revisions to policy and regulation 5131.111.
Second.
Properly made and seconded. Any questions or comments? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries.
Policy and regulation 5145.12, search and seizure. Revisions here include expanded and more detailed definitions of search and seizure process. Permits the administration with reasonable suspicion to act in the best interest and safety and security of all students. It does provide guidance with respect to documentation as well as informing other stakeholders.
Move to approve the revisions to policy 5145.12.
Second.
Properly made and seconded motion. Anybody have any comments or questions? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried.
Okay, the next two policies, my colleague Ms. Ford will be addressing.
Next, we have policy 6146 on graduation requirements. The policy was revised to address three purposes. One is the NGSS assessment is now going to be required of students and requires students to have 3 years of science curriculum behind them before they take that assessment. Currently, our graduation requirement policy only requires students to take 2 courses of science. So this would be a change that would be in effect for the start of next year, requiring students to have 3 credits of science. Also, one change beginning with the freshman class next year. Due to the state accountability system looking at the number of students who are enrolling in art and CTE courses right now, we have that as an or option for our students. They need to attain 1 credit in art or in a career and technical education class. We're changing that or to an and. It's still included in the elective credits that they're currently taking, so we don't anticipate that to be a major change. Finally, the performance standards have changed. The previous policy talked about a specific benchmark in SAT performance for literacy and math. That there's been changes at the state level to that requirement, so that's influencing the change here.
Move to approve the revisions to policy and regulation 6146.
Second.
Motion has been properly made and seconded. Any questions or comments? If not, I think you're ready to vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries.
And the next policy we have is 6153 on field trips. The field trip policy outlines the purposes of field trips, types of field trips, and the responsibilities and roles of those related to each type of trip that's offered. The rationale for the revision is that the approval process previously did not address the role of a school nurse within the field trip planning and implementation, leading to some trips that were on the verge of cancellation due to the need of a nurse that emerged late in the process. So we've added the approval of the nurse, the review of the nurse prior to approval in the revision of the policy. We also took this opportunity to restructure the policy to be more clear about the roles and responsibilities related to each type of trip for the various purposes and the individuals involved. And that's it.
Move to approve the revisions to policy and regulation 6153.
Second.
I went to
Motion been properly made and seconded.
Enthusiastically seconded.
Yes, very enthusiastically. If there's not any comments or questions, this is probably our most looked at policy that we ever look at. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. I do want to give congratulations and thanks. I'm not sure the policy committee knew when we made this a standing committee how much work you're going to do. So we certainly, as you are starting to finish up the year, thank you for all the hard work and the administration as well. I know this has been a big challenge, but I think it's a worthy activity. We'll move on to new business. Does anybody have any new business? We will move on to new information. My left, Joe.
No.
Karen.
No.
Karen.
Yes. Briefly, last fall, as some of you remember, when there was a cancellation of a speaker at Northeast, a Muslim speaker, there were some families that were disappointed. So I just want to share with people, this is not a Bristol Public Schools event, but it is an educational event. It's the Bristol Interfaith Coalition inviting people in the community to learn about Ramadan, listen to speakers from different faiths, talk about the role of fasting and breaking the fast with our Muslim neighbors. It is May 21st at 6:30 at the Bristol Boys and Girls Club, which is on 255 West Street in Bristol, and it's free. And I'm sure it will be a wonderful event. You can find it on Facebook, search Bristol Interfaith Coalition.
Okay, Tina?
No.
Jeff? No. One of those J's. Mr. O'Brien? Mr. Kelly?
No, I have a liaison report.
Okay, all right. We're going to do liaison reports, so we're starting with you.
Okay, fine. I'd like to share with everyone a observation of mine from spending the last year in Edgewood School. I'm a mentor, so I'm in the school once a week. And I'd just like to compliment Mrs. Giordano, the principal, and the entire staff, teachers, paraprofessionals, specialists, office workers, custodial staff, and food service workers, because there's a definite spirit of collaboration and cooperation and genuine teamwork. And there's an old African proverb, not to be confused with Hillary's book. This came before that. And it says it takes a village to raise a child. And we've learned tonight, in some cases, it takes a village to feed a child as well. So child rearing and education are intertwined. And that's very evident in all of the staff down at Edgewood. So I'd just like to compliment them and also mention that it's not limited to Edgewood, but that's my most recent firsthand experience in the Bristol Public School. So I think it's a good idea to let those people know their efforts aren't taken for granted. Thank you, Jim.
Mr. O'Brien? Mr. Caggiano?
No liaison reports.
Mrs. Taylor?
Yes. So on May 19th, Green Hills will, May 23rd, Green Hills will again be having a mini Relay for Life event. It started a few years ago, and unfortunately we lost Mr. Clint DeSena. This year is not only for Mr. Clint DeSena, but also, of course, for Mrs. Stacy Cleaning, who we lost last month. If you cannot make that event, which is a great event, it's a mini one, so don't worry about walking too much. It's around the track. There's luminaries, just a beautiful night. But also, if you can't make that, the Bristol Rec Splash Team is having a swim-a-thon for Stacy Cleaning also. So you can go there on the 19th. So that's Saturday from 6 to 8. And again, just to celebrate Mrs. Cleaning's life. Today they had a field trip. Green Hills had a field trip. Also, I believe the rest of the middle schools, I would assume, were there. They took a field trip to Bristol Central. But there they were able to hear the speaker, Miriam Blumenthal-Lazan, I hope I'm saying that correctly, and she is a Holocaust survivor. They began earlier this month by reading her book and talking about, all the atrocities of the Holocaust and all of her firsthand experience with that. So they were able to listen to her speak. They were able to, just get the powerfulness of it all. And I did have a child who was there today, and it was very powerful for him. So I'm glad that we are, teaching our kids history through religion and, just getting them empathetic about other people's experience. And it was a good time. Well, I wouldn't say good time. It was a good learning experience, I should say.
Chairman Wilson, I apologize, but I did get a text message from Commissioner Dubey, who had to leave early. I hope you'll allow me to read her report. I guess her opinion didn't matter on CEP, but that's okay. The Student Advisory Council, which is comprised of 6th through 8th grade students, led an assembly to bring awareness to the impact of labeling others. The presentation was created and delivered by students and was well received by the student body. The Family Resource Center has a school-wide dance where parents and children dance the night away. It was a huge success. Finally, 8th grade students participated in a day of bowling and laser tag to recognize those who continually demonstrated the characteristics of exemplary school citizenship. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Yes, please. This past Monday evening, myself, along with Superintendent Moreau, attended the Academic Awards Banquet at Bristol Eastern High School. It's a wonderful event. I'm sure Carly remembers it. It's really very inspiring. It's the top 10% GPAs grade-wise in each grade. It's a wonderful night that celebrates what really our top goal, if you will, is. We have a lot of wonderful programs, and that's wonderful. They're all they're great and they're important. We want to raise educate well-rounded students. That being said, our number one goal is the education of our students. And it's really nice to recognize these kids because they don't get enough recognition. One other thing, I'm going to appoint myself for the next 30 seconds as the liaison to the Bristol Business Ed Foundation. I attended the trivia night. It was fabulous. Mrs. Casson was there. She won the 50-50 and she turned funds back over to the Bristol Business Ed Foundation. That was very nice. We had such a great time. I was a little nervous going because I'm not great at Trivial Pursuit, but it wasn't that kind of event. You sat at a table. I was fortunate to be on the team with Councilman Perleski, and you sat at a table, you worked together to get the answers. Everybody had a wonderful time. Sarah, you did a great job emceeing it, and I hope they do it again. I want to encourage them to do it again. I want to encourage people to go. It was the first one, so we need to spread the word about how wonderful it was and get more teachers, especially the teachers who have received grants, to attend this. Hopefully they'll do it next year in a bigger room.
Yes. That's the plan.
Commissioner Hicks?
Nothing.
Commissioner Grabowski?
No.
I just wanted to let you all know the Memorial Building Arts Magnet School Building Committee convened last Thursday. It was the first organizational meeting of the group. We passed the educational specifications, which the superintendent had submitted to the Department of Administrative Services. And we also, the other motion we took is we did a request for qualifications for architects as per the suggestion of the Department of Administrative Services that we go ahead and proceed with those two activities. Of course, we won't spend any money until we actually get a grant, but they suggested that we go ahead and proceed with that and not lose the time of the summer by waiting any longer. So I want everybody to know that, and I will provide you liaison reports for the building committee as we proceed. So now I would entertain a motion to vote to go into executive session for the purpose of discussing the superintendent's evaluation. And the only person that will be coming into the evaluation with us will be the superintendent.
So moved.
Second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.